Hi, this is Megan, and I am here with sketch number 7 from the September 2021 Creative Memories Worldwide Virtual Crop. And this sketch, we have a 2-page layout. The photos are pretty straightforward. They're all fairly standard sizes. Hopefully something that you're able to crop just from some basic 4x6s. And this layout uses some 9 1/4 inch squares, 3 different patterns or 3 different colors that you would kind of, place on top of each other and rotate ever so slightly to get that fan effect in all 4 corners. So you can see here, I did 1 page, and the reason I had to do 1 page is because I didn't have enough paper to actually make 9 by 9 inch squares and just fan them out. That is going to be the most straightforward way to do this, is just go ahead and cut 9 by 9 squares or the 9 1/4 inch squares and lay them out. I actually had to sit here and piece things together because I was a little short on paper. I'm using the everyday power palette that was from eons ago, probably when this little one, who's now 15 years old, when she was a baby, it was probably when it came out. So I had to piece some things together, and that's what I'm going to show you how I did. It makes it way more complicated, so if you don't have to do that, don't do that. If you're trying to save paper, go ahead and make those the 9 by 9. The top pieces would have to be the 9 1/4 inch square. The ones underneath, you can make just go ahead and do your 9 1/4 inch square and then cut out the center of them so that you can keep that excess paper. You could use that to do the mats. There's some bar detail that they have on top of the photos or incorporated with the mats. They're a little bit fun. The reason I went with this everyday power palette is because the colors match perfectly. You can see here we had a very bright the kind of extra saucer that she's sitting in. So I got a lot of bright colors going on, and this power palette worked great for that. So that's why I'm digging into those. The other part that was great is I had a ton of the Storybox mats, and those are 4.5 by 6.5, which when you look at the mats here, that's what you needed, was 4.5 by 6.5 inch mats. So I went the easy route for the mats, and I just cut down Storybox photo mats to make those work. And I'm going to show you how I pieced together this background. So I went with a white background because I just needed something that was kind of light. I was going to have a lot going on. My photos are very busy in terms of color, and I was going to be using a pattern here that had a lot going on. So I thought white would be perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this photo or that layout out of the way and come over here. I'm going to put my white cardstock here on the back, on my mat. And I'm using my trimming mat because that's going to help me get my first square laid in here. So I can take a look at how my squares are tilted. And I went ahead, and when I did my first one, I did a 2.5 inch tilt, meaning that my corners all lined up at 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to kind of go here. So it's 2.5 inches at where it meets, where it's closest to the edge of the paper. 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches. So there, as long as my paper is centered on my mat, I should be good. So what I'm going to do is hold my paper down with one hand. I'm going to grab my tape runner here. I'm using repositionable. And I'm just going to go ahead and put some adhesive underneath. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy, and I'm going to try to keep it centered towards the middle because I actually need to work in a layer underneath. Now, this is where things get a little crazy, and I'm making it way more complicated than it needs to be. I have to work with these crazy little strips to get my other corners. So I'm piecing things together. So I'm going to come in here, and I want this to also be at, I'm going to reference my other piece here. And I can see if I'm wanting to mimic it, how I kind of did it. I'm going to actually use this one here. I remember my first one was at 2.5, and I am at 2.5 again. So I'm going to come in here. Two and a half, it angles in. And I'm going to keep putting those pieces in all the way around. This is why I definitely wanted to keep that wanted to keep that, the adhesive towards the middle on this top piece. And kind of when I'm putting this in here, I need to envision that I have a square going. Like I said, this is a crazy complicated way. If you're feeling a little bit adventuresome and you don't have a ton of scraps or a ton of paper to work with, it's definitely something to try. I just ran into the whole thing. I didn't have enough of the striped paper. I thought I did, but I did not. And I could not make 9.5 inch or the 9.25 inch squares. So I'm just imagining that I've got this red paper and I need to be making sure that I'm putting the right side up. The grid paper needs to be up. I have to make a switch on this one. There's a faint grid line to it, which should be sticking up. So there you can kind of see I've still got that about the 2.5, about 2.5 here and here, there and there. And overall, from a distance, when you're looking down upon it, you kind of think, oh, she's got a square piece of red paper there. The nice thing about this particular sketch is you've got pretty generous sized mats. You're covering up a lot of corner. I really just need to make sure one of my corners has a really nice looking fan pattern to it. If the other corners are a little bit messed up, in all honesty, they get covered up. So then, like I said, I was really stretching this striped paper. So I actually made it into some triangles. Before I get those down, I am going to go ahead and get these red pieces in place. Normally, if you're putting this together, you would of course start with your bottom layer and then work up if you're doing squares. I'm kind of doing this all a little bit backwards, giving it that special Megan makes it complicated. And I'm just going to go ahead and layer this in, pretending as if, once again, that I'm putting a square. Now, obviously, the way my stripe pattern is, it's definitely not going to look like a square because my patterns are going two different directions. But I wanted the stripe to show. But looking at my sketch, this is the corner that I need to look good. So that's where I'm going to make sure that I have things. Maybe I'm going to make sure, I think all of my pieces are the same in terms of my stripes. Actually, I think I'm going to use this one here because you can see I have a little bit more green on this edge. So a little bit more of that green color come out. And these just get placed in there as if I had a square piece of paper in there. So you can kind of see it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I am going to go ahead and put some adhesive down and kind of get everything just finalized in. There's going to be a lot of repo adhesive put down here just to hold things into place. Thank goodness for repo adhesive. And like I said, I'm really only concerned about this bottom corner. That is the one that's really going to show. So now I'm ready to go ahead and put the photos on and the mats on. I'm going to go ahead and remove my trimming mat. I don't need that anymore. And I put one page together because I wanted to kind of get an idea of what I was going for here. So here's the left-hand page. You do see that I did make some adjustments in my photo placement. I decided I wanted to have like opposite corners for my interpretation of this. So I'm not sure if this side will be the journaling side and over here will be, but I rearranged the photos so that I have this upper corner is where I am going to have any kind of title or journaling detail. I'm going to go ahead and stick a little bit more adhesive down. there. So now, like I said, I just grabbed the same colored mats. I used a yellow, an orange, and a green. And what I'm going to do here is, I know I'm going to come in with a top one here. I'm actually going to use, let's see, we'll do this one. And then I'll come in with the orange and this green square. So you can already see I have covered up those corners. I almost didn't even need to put down the those layered pieces in there because it got completely covered up. So that's something to keep in mind when you're putting this together. You may not even need to worry about it. I kept this fan effect over here, but I'm covering up a lot. And so I've got those in place. And now what I've got is my photos that I'm going to be putting in here. So I've got this photo. And it's a lot of photos that are very similar in shape. And I think I'll go ahead and trim that one down to be a square. So overall, I really like the direction this is headed. I went ahead and I cut some pieces of the Storybox mats so that I could do the detail that's in the sketch. They have these bar details here with the photos. So I'll be able to put those into place. And I didn't follow it completely. That's going to be an area where you're going to, depending on your photos, maybe you have completely square photos that you don't want to crop. They show the bars at the top. For me, that felt a little heavy up here. I wanted to put my bar down in the middle. So that's how I did there. So arrange those, pieces as you need to fit your photos so that you like the way it feels. And I would honestly say, don't worry too much if that's a piece that you decide to leave out. So, the sketch itself was a lot of fun to put together. I did, work to get these fanned, square edges to look nice. And that's really kind of a detail of this particular sketch, is that fanned effect for these, corners. It was a great one, like I said, to use that old Power Palette. These started off as a smaller 12 by 11.5. So they were easy for me to cut down into that 9 1/4 inch square using up some old stash. It's good to get those done. So I'm going to finish this up. You'll flash a final or close to final result. And I hope that you are able to share with me what you create. I can't wait to see it. Thanks for watching. A quick follow-up to show you how I ended up finalizing this layout. I had a lot of space left in these corners, and I didn't have a whole lot I was going to be able to say. These are, memories that are about 14, 15 years old. So I still had a few photos left over, and I decided to go ahead and just do a square. This is a 4x4. So is this one in the opposite corners, kind of filled in that space a little bit so I didn't have quite so much blue. I still get that nice fan effect. And then I just grabbed some of the laser cut titles to put there on each side to just balance things out. I can still put a little bit of journaling in here. I'll probably go ahead and put the date and the year here so that we can just remember, maybe her name and her age and the year that it was. And maybe just a quick little brief couple lines about how much she enjoyed playing in that saucer. So anyway, I wanted to show you what it looked like since I did modify it a little bit more after I completed the actual bulk of the video. So thanks again for watching.